I did it. I had to. They can't know, promise me. I gotta go.
New York, 1955. A single phone call changed Harlem forever. A trusted lieutenant, someone Bumpy Johnson had fed, clothed, protected for years, picked up the receiver in a Bronx payphone and whispered 4 words that were worth $50,000 in cash. He keeps the real books in the basement of Wells' restaurant. That betrayal handed the Italian mob the keys to Bumpy's entire numbers empire, ledgers, safe locations, payoff routes. Within weeks, raids gutted half his operation. Men went missing. Arrests spiked. Bumpy lost millions. But he never said a word about who did it. For 10 long years he waited. He searched quietly. He listened. And on a rainy night in 1965, in a back alley behind a Brooklyn bar, Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson finally found the man who sold him out. He didn't bring a gun. He brought a straight razor. And when he was done, the only sound left was rain washing blood into the gutter. Some debts take a decade to collect. But when they come due in full. By 1955, Bumpy Johnson was untouchable. Harlem's numbers king ran the most disciplined, profitable racket in the city. The Italians took a cut and stayed downtown. The police took their envelopes and looked away. Bumpy's word was law. His inner circle was small and loyal. Raymond Ray Coleman had been with him since Sing Sing, quiet, sharp, always watching Bumpy's back. Ray handled the daily counts, knew every safe house, every runner's route, every hidden ledger. Bumpy trusted him like a brother. That trust cost everything. Late October, 3 a.m. Ray stepped out of a Bronx diner, collar up against the wind, and dropped a dime into the payphone. He dialed a number he'd been given weeks earlier. A calm Italian voice answered. Ray spoke low. Basement of Wells' restaurant, 2 safes behind the wine racks. Combination changes every Tuesday. Real books are in the black ledger under the false floorboard. Silence on the line. Then 50,000 cash delivered tomorrow. Ray hung up. He told himself it was just business. Bumpy was getting old. The Italians were going to take Harlem anyway. He told himself he'd use the money to disappear, start clean. He told himself a lot of lies that night. 3 nights later, unmarked cars rolled up to Wells' restaurant after closing. NYPD on the mob's payroll kicked in the basement door. They found the safes exactly where Ray said. Ledgers, cash, names, routes. Bumpy's runners were scooped up for weeks. Arrests made headlines. Policy banks folded. Bumpy's take dropped 60% overnight. He sat in his apartment on 116th Street, staring at the wall. He didn't rage. He didn't accuse. He just asked one quiet question to his remaining men. Who knew about the basement floorboard? Silence. Then one name hung in the air like smoke. Raymond Coleman. He'd vanished the day after the call. Bumpy never spoke Ray's name again. Not in meetings, not to maimed, not to anyone. But he never stopped looking. He paid informants in every borough, kept ears in every bar from the Bronx to Brooklyn, sent men to check Florida, Chicago, Detroit, anywhere a man with $50,000 might run. Ray was careful, changed names, moved cities, grew a beard, married a white woman in New Jersey, opened a small dry cleaning business under the name Robert Cole. He thought 10 years was long enough. He was wrong. November 1965, a Brooklyn numbers runner owed Bumpy a favor. He called from a payphone. Boss, there's a man in Bay Ridge, looks like Ray, same scar above the left eyebrow, owns a cleaners on 86th, goes by Robert now. Bumpy listened. Hung up. Told Mame I'll be late tonight. She looked at him a long time. Then simply said, be careful. He kissed her forehead. Took only one thing from the drawer. A straight razor he'd carried since his Charleston days. Rain fell hard that night. Bumpy waited in the shadows behind a Bay Ridge bar Ray visited every Thursday. Around 11:30, Ray stepped out the back door lighting a cigarette. Bumpy stepped forward. Rain slid off his fedora. Ray froze, the cigarette dropped from his lips. Ellsworth, he whispered. Bumpy's voice was soft, almost kind. 10 years right, 10 years. No long speech. No begging. Ray tried to run, slipped on wet pavement. Bumpy caught him by the collar, pressed him against the brick wall. The razor opened with a single click. Ray sobbed, "I had no choice, they would have killed me." Bumpy's eyes never wavered. "You had a choice," he said. "You chose $50,000. The razor moved once, clean, precise. Ray slumped. Rain washed the blood away in seconds. Bumpy folded the blade. Walked into the night. The sky was still black when Bumpy stepped back into Harlem. No sirens trailed him. No headlights followed. Just the soft crunch of his polished wingtips on the thin layer of February frost that had settled on 126th Street. He walked slow. Not from exhaustion. From ritual. Every block he passed felt like it exhaled. The all-night number spot on Lenox was still open. 2 runners stood in the doorway sharing a cigarette. They saw him coming from half a block away. Neither spoke. They just straightened their backs, flicked the cigarette into the gutter, and gave him the smallest, most respectful nod a man can give another. Bumpy touched the brim of his fedora. That was all. He turned onto his street. The kitchen light was on. Mame never slept when he was out on business like this. She never asked where he'd been either. She just waited. He pushed open the door. The apartment smelled of coffee that had gone cold and the faint lemon oil she used on the table. Mame sat there in her robe, hands folded, eyes already on him before the hinges even finished creaking. For a long moment, neither of them moved. No embrace at the door. No frantic questions. Just 2 people who had long ago learned the language of silence. Bumpy closed the door behind him. The latch clicked like a period at the end of a very long sentence. He took off his hat and set it carefully on the sideboard. His coat followed. Mame's gaze traveled over him, searching for blood, for torn fabric, for anything that would tell her what kind of night it had been. She found nothing. No red on his shirt. No powder burns. No tremble in his hands. Just the same calm, unreadable face she had fallen in love with years ago. She rose without hurry. Crossed the small kitchen in 4 quiet steps. Reached up, and laid her palm against his cheek. His skin was cold from the night air. Hers was warm from the stove's lingering heat. She didn't ask if he was all right. She already knew the answer wasn't one that could be spoken. Instead, she stepped closer and wrapped her arms around him. Bumpy let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He didn't hug her back right away. He simply stood inside her embrace, letting her warmth seep through his suit, through his shirt, through the wall he kept up for the rest of the world. Then slowly, his arms came around her. Not tight. Not desperate. Just present. They stayed like that a long time. Outside, the first gray light of morning began to leak between the buildings. When they finally separated, Mame looked into his eyes. She didn't say what happened. She didn't say, "Are you safe now?" She only said very softly, "Coffee's cold." Bumpy gave the smallest smile, the one only she ever saw. "I'll heat it." He moved to the stove. She moved to get 2 cups. Normal. Domestic. As if the last 10 years hadn't just ended in a dry cleaner's back room in Bay Ridge. By the time the sun rose, Harlem already knew. Not from newspapers. Not from police radios. From the streets themselves. The dry cleaner who'd been so proud of his new shop on 4th Avenue hadn't opened that morning. His wife told neighbors he'd gone out late and never came home. The shop stayed dark. No body was ever found. No missing person report went very far. But every runner, every doorman, every mother walking her child to school felt the shift in the air. When Bumpy walked past the barber shop at noon, the old men on the bench stopped their checkers game mid-move. They didn't stare. They just watched him pass with the quiet respect you give a storm that has decided, for now, to move on. The young numbers boys stood a little taller when they saw him coming. Coats buttoned properly. Hats said just right. No one asked what happened. They didn't need to. The message had already traveled faster than any Western Union telegram. Bumpy Johnson doesn't forget. He doesn't forgive. He waits. 10 minutes. 10 months. 10 years. Doesn't matter. When he finds you, the debt is settled. And the instrument is always the same. A straight razor. Clean. Sharp. Personal. That night after Mame had gone to bed, Bumpy sat alone in the living room. He took the razor from his inside pocket, the same one he'd carried for years. He opened it slowly. The blade caught the lamplight and threw a thin silver line across his knuckles. He looked at it a long moment. Then he closed it again, and placed it carefully on the table. Not hidden, not buried, just ready. Because some debts are paid in blood. Some are paid in time. And the worst ones, the ones that cut deepest, are paid in both. Bumpy never spoke of that night again. He didn't have to. Harlem remembered for him. And for the next 20 years, no one who knew the story ever dared to test whether the razor had grown dull. It hadn't. It never would.